Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Suresh. Today, we are going to get into one of the most fundamental skills you'll learn in operative dentistry, the initial tooth preparation for a Class 1 amalgam. Now I want you to think of this as laying the perfect foundation for a house. If you get this stage right, everything that follows has a chance to be successful and, more importantly, long-lasting. So, let's get started.
So here's the big question, isn't it? How do we build something that's going to last? You know, the difference between a filling that gives up in a couple of years and one that serves the patient for decades? Well, it often comes down to the principles we're covering right here, right now. The whole game starts with that very first cut you make.
All right, so let's talk about the initial tooth preparation. This isn't just about drilling out the decay. Not at all. This is the first deliberate stage where we literally establish the blueprint for our final restoration. We're defining its shape, its strength, and exactly how it's going to lock securely into that tooth.
Okay, let's look at the official definition for a second, because the key words are right here. We've got 3 core objectives to absolutely master. First, we establish the outline form. Second, we maintain a very specific depth. And third, we create the initial resistance and retention forms. We're going to break down every single one of these.
First up, the outline form. This is the perimeter, the very edge of our preparation. And let me be clear, this is not arbitrary. You don't just guess. It's a precise blueprint that's dictated by where the decay is, and most importantly, by our #1 goal, to conserve as much healthy tooth structure as we possibly can.
So you've got to stick to these principles, no exceptions. We only include what's actually defective, the bad pits and fissures. We stay away from the cusps because they're the pillars of the tooth's strength. We keep our extensions as minimal as possible. Now here's a key rule. If you have 2 little preps that are getting super close, we're talking less than ½ a millimeter apart, you've got to join them. Otherwise, you're leaving a paper-thin, weak wall of enamel just waiting to fracture. And finally, every single one of your margins has to end on smooth, healthy tooth. This is what conservative dentistry is all about.
To do all of this right, you obviously need the right tools. The specific shape and size of the burrs we use are not chosen by accident. They are engineered to help us achieve all those preparation goals, both efficiently and with precision.
Okay, let's meet our primary workhorse. This is the number 245 carbide burr. It's an elongated pear shape about 3 millimeters long. There's also the number 330, which is basically its smaller cousin. Great for really conservative preps, but for today, our focus is squarely on the 245.
Now this is why this burr is so perfectly designed for the job. Its sides are slightly convergent. That means they automatically create walls that lean in towards the top, creating a natural undercut, and boom, that's a retention form. It literally locks the amalgam in place. At the same time, its rounded corners create rounded internal line angles. This is huge for distributing biting forces and helping the tooth resist fracture. It's a brilliant piece of engineering where the tool does half the work for you. All right, now that we have the principles and the right tool, let's walk through the procedure itself. When you know the why, the how becomes a systematic and, honestly, a pretty predictable process.
We're going to follow these 5 core steps. We start with what's called the punch cut to enter the tooth. Then we establish our depth, extend out along the fissures, carefully manage the marginal ridges, and finally we connect everything into a smooth, flowing outline.
Step 1, the punch cut. This is absolutely critical. You have to orient the burr parallel to the long axis of the tooth crown, not the root. We enter the deepest, most carious pit first, and here's a huge clinical tip for you. If the pits seem equally decayed, always start in the distal pit. Why? Because it gives you way better visibility as you move your handpiece forward towards the mesial.
This number is everything. Your initial target depth is 1.5 millimeters. On a molar or premolar, this depth puts your pulpal floor just inside the dentinoenamel junction, the DEJ. That's the sweet spot. It gives us enough bulk for the amalgam to be strong, but it keeps us a safe distance from the pulp. And here's a handy guide. Since the head of that 245 burr is 3 millimeters long, you're basically aiming to go in about half its length.
Now let's talk about the marginal ridges, because these are high-stress areas. When your prep has to extend into one, you have to be so careful not to undermine it. To do that, you're going to tilt your burr ever so slightly. We're talking less than 10 degrees, to create a slight flare on that wall. This little move is what preserves the vital dentin that's supporting that marginal ridge enamel.
So what happens when you run into a very shallow fissure, maybe just a little stain, that doesn't really seem to warrant cutting a whole big preparation? Well, this is where we can use a much more conservative technique called enameloplasty. Enamelplasty is basically just reshaping the surface of the enamel. We're not really creating a prep in the traditional sense. We're just removing a shallow little fault to make the area smooth and cleansable. We save a ton of healthy tooth structure this way. It's a fantastic, minimally invasive approach when it's appropriate.
So when do you use it? Great question, and there's a very clear clinical guideline. As you extend your prep, you'll see the fissure and cross-section at the edge of your cut. If that remaining part of the fissure is only in the outer quarter to 1/3 of the enamel, that's your green light for enameloplasty. If it goes any deeper than that, nope, you have to fully extend the preparation to include it.
Okay, you think you're done with the initial prep. It's so tempting to just move on, but this is the moment where you have to stop and critically evaluate your own work. Have you actually achieved the forms we've been talking about? This self-assessment, this quality check, that's the mark of an excellent clinician.
So, run through this checklist for your resistance form. Ask yourself, is my pulpal floor flat and sitting on solid, sound tooth structure? Did I stay conservative with my extensions? Are my enamel margins strong with plenty of dentin supporting them? And the big one, is my prep at least 1.5 millimeters deep so the amalgam will be thick enough to resist fracture?
And what about retention? Well, this part is beautifully simple. Your primary retention form comes directly from that occlusal convergence of the walls, which was created for you, automatically, by using that number 245 burr correctly. That's what mechanically locks this whole restoration in place.
Now, this is a crucial point, so listen carefully. How do you know when you're done with this stage? Your initial preparation is complete when the entire periphery, the entire outline at the DEJ is clean and totally free of caries. It is perfectly okay if there's still some soft decay right in the middle of the pulpal floor. We'll deal with that in the final preparation stage. The number one goal here is to get that DEJ clean.
So, let's end with this question. Imagine you've finished your initial prep. But what if you ignored these principles? What if you didn't get the depth right, or you left a weak enamel wall, or your outline form was wrong? Where is the most likely point of failure? Think about that, because understanding the answer will make it crystal clear why every single step we covered today is absolutely essential.